to the Oklahoma Sports Podcast. We're the little podcast on the prairie, and I'm Jared, and this is Chase.
How you doing today, J-Mac?
Doing good. Thunder just came away with a good win. Recording this kind of late on Wednesday. We just saw the Thunder get their 6th straight win. Pretty dope.
Yeah, pretty gritty.
Other than that, I mean, just doing good.
Yeah, it's
having a good time.
Not a roller coaster this week of emotion.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to win. The Thunder have won 6 in a row. They've been great, and so
yeah.
It's been a fun week.
Yeah, and we'll lead off by talking about the game this last weekend for OU, which was OU at Texas Tech. OU winning 51-46. That game was pretty crazy for a lot of reasons, back and forth. Kyler Murray throws 2 interceptions to start the game, and all of a sudden you start in a 14-point hole. It's a difficult place to play. That's not a good formula for winning.
No, definitely not. And the only thing that I took away early from it was I like that they didn't get rattled. It's really the first time you've seen this team see any adversity on the field. Other than, they did in that Texas game when they were down 21, but that wasn't early on. It looked like OU was just going to be able to drive down the field the entire game. So kind of seeing what this team can do when Kyler is quote unquote human on the field and makes some mistakes. It was encouraging to see them be able to come back from 14 down in the beginning of the game. Yeah,
so like we said, just going through the box score, Kyler throws 2 picks right off the bat, instantly leads to 2 touchdowns for the Red Raiders, and this is after OU had gotten a stop on defense to start the game, and we're thinking, oh, here we go, like we just got an easy stop on defense. I mean, Tech's not going to be able to score. We're just going to run away with this game, and that's not how it played out. OU in the second half, I thought, played really, really well.
I agree.
But diving into the box score, OU total yardage 683, Texas Tech 473. So OU outgaining Tech by 210 yards. The game really didn't feel particularly close in the fourth to me. I mean, it was a little bit back and forth. That last touchdown that Tech scored was like a minute left in the fourth quarter. 4th and goal. They do a quarterback sneak and get it in. I mean, it just wasn't much for me. I thought OU's defense was pretty sound, really.
Yeah.
I mean, they gave up big plays here and there. There were some awful calls, unsportsmanlike calls. There's a really, really bad pass interference on, I believe, 4th down.
Yeah.
Parnell Motley came away with a pick, and they called it pass interference, negated that pick.
Yeah, and like I didn't get to watch the game as it happened, especially in the first half. I had some other things going on, but the second half, the defense came out, looked great, had 3 straight 3-and-outs, I believe, and then they scored a field goal, kicked a field goal at some point. So they made some adjustments. It's just hard because those first 2 drives for Tech after the punt, the 2 drives after the interceptions started off on the 3 and then like on the 25. So I mean, you can't put even a great defense. You can't grab Alabama's defense, Michigan's defense, and put them in that position and expect them not to give up points. So doing that to OU's defense just put them behind the 8 ball the entire game, and then it just started that narrative all over again, especially for those who didn't actually watch the game, that, oh, this is just the same old OU defense. Yeah,
so the second half, of course, Bowman, the starting quarterback for Tech, gets knocked out of the game. Dude's got a collapsed lung. For whatever reason, they decided it'd be a good idea to try to run him in the red zone against OU's defense. He gets smacked. At the time, he didn't feel anything, but when he's warming up for the second half, you see him bend over. They have like a shot of the field, him warming up. Originally, they thought he got hit with a football, but he just started feeling the pains, and he went to the hospital. He just got released, like, as of today, which is Wednesday.
Yeah.
So they ran a guy with a collapsed lung for some reason, which meant their backup quarterback had to come in the game in the second half, and they went punt, field goal.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you're going to get that, OU's going to win, and that's when OU kind of took command. Felt like they could have done more. OU had a couple punts mixed in there, too, in the second half. But like you said, Kyler was a little bit mortal. Trey Sermon ran for 206 yards, and he had a lot of carries, and I know a lot of OU fans felt the same way. I felt as if, and this is a bit of a hot take, but I almost feel like there was a period there, especially in the third quarter, where it felt like Coach Riley was really trying to get Murray that Heisman. He was like chunking it. Instead of running it, because every time they ran it, it was 10, 15 yards every single time. I think Trey Sermon averaged 8.7 yards a carry.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was getting really frustrated just personally. I was like, we're just chunking the ball down the field, closing our eyes, and Hollywood Brown's still not fully healthy. And the one long catch he did have, he kind of dropped. Yeah. Probably was a catch and a fumble that he recovered himself. They called it incomplete, whatever. My point is, I think they really, really tried to feed Kyler with some easy stats, just chunking it down the field, and it just wasn't working.
Yeah, I agree, and it's really the first time, again, that this team has faced adversity, and it's the first time you kind of saw the youth of these OU skill players, at least on the outside. I know that Hollywood Brown, came from a JUCO, so he's a little bit older, but this is, really last year was his first taste of big time football, and the same with CD. So you could tell those guys got a little rattled. CD had 30 yards and penalty yards on one play.
Yeah.
And then Hollywood Brown drops a couple of balls he shouldn't, which he may not be fully healthy, but those are balls he normally brings in. So I agree. I think, Lincoln wants to have full faith in all of his guys. And so when you see a guy make a play like that or drop a pass, you want to get the ball right back in his hands. You want his confidence to stay where it's at. But when Trey Sermon's running the ball like he is, it's hard not to just keep feeding him the rock. And even, and Kennedy Brooks, I think, only ended up with 4 carries. But, when Trey Sermon's running the ball like he is there, it's hard not to. But I think I would have liked to seen a few more touches from him and maybe not 35 pass attempts from Kyler in a game. I don't think we've seen that many from him game in and game out. Normally it's, within the 20 to 25 range, it feels like. But he is hitting on some big plays.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting point that we should cover really quickly. The wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, he had 50 yards receiving, but by far was his worst game. And you mentioned he had 30 yards of penalties in one play. After the fact, the Big 12 came out and said that shouldn't have been 30 yards of penalties. It should have been 2 penalties. They can only get 1, so it should have been a 15-yard penalty, which puts OU first and 10 from about the 30-yard line. Instead, it backed them up to whatever it was, the 40-yard line, and OU slows down and has to punt.
Yeah.
So that's another one of those big 7-point, 14-point swings that happened in the game, and OU just kept battling. Like I said, outscoring or outgaining this Texas Tech offense by 210 yards. That's pretty special. OU was 3 of 10 on third down, which is great. I think Tech was something like
3 of 13.
3 of 13, which is under 25%. That's great for a defense.
Yeah.
They just got bailed out a couple times by penalties. I'm not going to be a salty boy and talk about that.
Yeah, got to win.
Tech fans have been extremely salty. They think they only lost because their backup quarterback played. That's welcome to football. I guess this is y'all's first year. I'm not sure. I know I'm being kind of crappy, but you got no credit from those guys. They think that they should have won that game. And good luck against Texas this week. But let's go ahead and talk about Bedlam.
Yeah,
Bedlam's what we're getting close to Bedlam. Saturday coming up, 2:30 game. We've got some drama right off the bat. Hill, OSU's kind of big name running back, kind of probably the biggest name on the offense other than the wide receiver Wallace.
Yeah.
Post this on Instagram. It says another day in the office, ... Bedlam. And by the way, they lost this game that this picture's from. He tagged little boys and kids underneath the OU defenders.
At least I didn't know that was turf and those were fans, so I appreciate that.
Thankfully, he let us know what fans and turfs look like.
Yeah.
And again, OU did win that game last year, but I think 10 points or 11 points.
It was.
So it's really great that he posted this, because one thing that could have happened is OU could have slept on this Oklahoma State team.
Definitely.
Oklahoma kind of had a tough game against Tech on the road, and they came out with a win, felt good about it. But there's not a whole lot of animosity towards OSU right now because OU's won it 3 years in a row.
Yep.
You got a bad team coming into your house, and you're just kind of like, whatever, it's just another Big 12 game. And then this guy decides to post this. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I'm shocked too, because like you said, OSU was flying under the radar. They flew under the radar, even though it was a night game against Texas on their homecoming. They were going to fly under the radar into this game. Again, almost a 20-point underdog according to the spread. And I believe both times that OSU has been at least a 20-point underdog going into OU's place, 2000 and 2014, they've come away with a win, and it's probably because of the same factor.
Yep.
But now he's woken everybody up. The two guys in the back of the picture both start on OU's defense. Mm-hmm. You've got them commenting on it. You've got Buzzy Bolton, one of OU's linebackers, who is just a hard-nosed, old-school football player. He's talking about it. He said, we'll take care of it on the field. I don't care about Instagram. So now these guys, this defense is focused. And, they wanted to come and make a statement after that Texas Tech game. They wanted to change the narrative or continue to do so. And so I think they've just woken them up even more to be ready for that game.
Yeah, and Justice Hill, you got to know your own guys. You've won one road game this season, and it's against the Kansas Jayhawks.
Rock chalk.
And you didn't even pull away from those guys. It's the worst team in the Big 12 the last 20 years or whatever. Well, since 07.
Yeah, they're one good year.
11 years.
I don't know if we count that year.
Yeah, it was a crazy year. But yeah, you're not a good team on the road. So why are you going to poke, in this case, Big Brother?
Yeah.
Into being mad about this. Like I said, you could have flown under the radar. You chose to do this. It's not going to work out for him, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either. But what worries me, and I've seen it the last 2 weeks, with Kansas State, with Texas Tech, both of those teams early on have tried to muck it up, have tried to play really physical, do some kind of chippiness after plays, get in some guys' faces, because they know talent-wise they just don't stack up with OU. And so I'm worried that OSU is going to try to do the same, get in these guys' heads, make it, hey, this is a rivalry, you guys can't beat us, and get OU off their game early. But, it didn't really work out against K-State. It worked a little bit in Texas. Cody Ford had that personal foul early on, which
CD had one.
And so, but being at home against OSU is a completely different animal than being on the road at a night game, which probably shouldn't have been a night game in Lubbock.
I forgot to bring that up too. I was a little bit salty that was a night game. As an OU fan, you want to see your team play at night under the lights and everything. But why is Texas Tech and OU a night game? Tech just lost the week before. Not ranked. And then you got Texas and West Virginia in Texas, one of the biggest games back in UT for forever.
Yeah.
And it's a game that comes down all the way down to the wire. West Virginia wins on a 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
And that game's played at 2:30. And then the OU Tech game's at night. I just don't understand that. It shouldn't have been a night game, because now Tech turns around and has another night game in their house. Just seems really unfair to me.
And you know what? I thought about the reason why, and I think it's because Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes were playing the next day on Sunday in the NFL. So I'm pretty sure ESPN wanted to push their ratings as high as possible, do all these little shorts and these little segments about that crazy game they had 2 years ago. So I think they were pushing for a night game because that's what was following it. It just to kind of pump up ratings. They knew they would get more ratings on an OU night game in Texas Tech than I think they would on a Texas West Virginia game.
Yeah, and I was excited about Bedlam because Bedlam had a chance to be a night game.
Yeah.
If Oklahoma State just beats Baylor last week, it's probably a night game. And as we all know, on the road, Oklahoma State unable to beat Baylor. Baylor scores at the end of the game and wins.
Yeah.
And here we are, 2:30 game. It is what it is. Thankfully, Justice Hill decides to poke the bear that is OU. And for me, we'll talk about the spread. The spread's about 19.5 as of recording this. I think OU covers that spread.
Yeah, I do too. I think now if you would have asked me before some of these posts happened, before OU kind of got woken up a little bit middle of the week, I would probably say no, just because, again, when a team that's unranked comes into OU's house and it's a rivalry game or perceived rivalry, then that team usually plays above what they normally are capable of, because this is their, again, we've said it in the past, this is their bowl game. This is how they want to make their statement this season. They may end up playing in the Russell Athletics Bowl against South Alabama or something, but this is going to be their bowl game. They can say for the rest of the year, hey, we beat OU. We came into your house. We gave you an L. We stopped you from getting into the playoff. But after all this, I think it wakes OU up, and I think they win by 3.5, 4 touchdowns. All right, so I guess here's a good time to talk about the college football rankings that came out.
Yeah, college football playoff rankings come out. OU jumps up a spot to 6 after LSU loses to Bama at home, 0-29. Let's just jump into it. Yeah. LSU only dropping to 7.
Yeah. Again, that's where I have the biggest problem with it. I know that Alabama is this otherworldly team, and they think, this team is one of the best, if not the best college football team of all time. I don't want to get into that. Season's not over. But for them to just drop to 7 ahead of a 1-loss Washington State team, a 1-loss West Virginia team, a 1-loss Ohio State team, I just don't get it. Again, it's propping up these SEC schools because they think Alabama is otherworldly, when other schools are deservedly so should be put ahead.
Yeah, and like we said, a lot of people said to me, hey, Washington State, West Virginia, Ohio State, those teams couldn't beat LSU, blah, blah, blah. That's not what the rankings are for. That's not what the rankings are for. All those teams score on Bama. I'm sorry. Yeah. I know Bama's good. They don't beat Bama, but they score, especially at home.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear that argument. I hate that argument. And then one thing that popped out to us is number 15 Utah, that's a Pac-12 team, loses to a 5-4 Arizona State team. They on the road, they drop completely out of the top 25.
Yeah.
Number 11 Florida loses at home to a 5-4 Missouri team, and they drop 4 spots.
Yeah. I don't understand it.
One team dropped 20, or I guess 21 spots.
Yeah.
One team dropped 4.
It just shows you what the committee thinks of the SEC year in and year out, and what the committee thinks of the Pac-12 year in and year out. It's we can go into that, and you can see Texas dropped a little bit further than I thought they would, but all things considered, after seeing what happened with Utah, I thought it was just fine. I believe they fell to 19, and so they fell 2-3 spots, which isn't bad. But you're right. Kentucky getting just manhandled by Georgia. They're not a good team. They should have lost to this Mizzou team, and they scorched one out late because of an iffy pass interference call and a touchdown with 0 time left on the clock. So I really think that Kentucky should have dropped further. Florida should have dropped further. I'm glad that we don't see A&M in the play in the poll really.
Well, but what we saw instead, Auburn is able to beat.
Yeah.
And they just flip-flop. They just sneak another SEC team in there.
Yeah.
And then the other problem we have is the ACC is also being very, very overrated. Syracuse at 13, NC State at 14. I don't really have I think Syracuse has played well. Obviously, their record speaks for itself. But they've jumped 6 spots.
Yeah.
And it's just – and I know a lot of teams lost, but is Syracuse and NC State really that good? Ultimately, probably not.
Probably. But what I'm glad to see is those teams at least jumped over the Florida and Mississippi States of the world. I would rather have a 2-loss ACC team above a 3-loss SEC team.
Yeah, definitely. I'm there too.
And so I guess, these rankings are going to fluctuate as they do every year. Notre Dame, I think, plays Syracuse this week.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be a tough game. And so, a lot of these games a lot of these teams at the top are going to fall off. Do I think LSU loses another game this season? Maybe. You get a hangover, win or lose, after playing Alabama and just getting blown out like that, your title chances are in the toilet. There's going to be a hangover. And so you're liable to lose a game or two that you shouldn't because of it.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on those college football playoff rankings for you as it moves. OU jumps up to 6. Still probably needs a little help to get in the playoff, but we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so the Oklahoma City Thunder have won 6 straight now as of recording this podcast. My only question is, to start off, what's different?
Well, there's a few things that are different. I think Russ knocked off a lot of rust after those first 2 games he had. He didn't get to play it all in the preseason. He was just kind of thrown into action, the third game of the year against the Sacramento team that we realize now is better than a lot of people thought. And so, him knocking off the rust, and then once they inserted Jeremy Grant into the starting lineup, which I believe they did it against Boston, which, they still end up losing that game, but Boston's a good team. But he's provided some much-needed energy in that starting lineup, and I think he's more versatile defensively than Patrick Patterson has been.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think he provides a lot of athleticism, rebounding, and things like that. They've kind of shored up the inside of that defense. Him being there, and then, like you said, Patterson moving to the bench. We can talk about the bench for a second. The bench has been crazy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things they got going on that's good. Patrick Patterson, at least this last game that we're talking, that we saw last, he really shot pretty well in key moments, and that's the biggest thing. Abrinas is in there shooting well. Diallo's just a ball
active.
of energy.
Yeah.
Obviously, Schroeder now, with Russ being out, at least for a couple games, has been starting. But when he was in the second unit, unreal too. You got a lot of guys playing good basketball.
Noel wouldn't even bring up.
We haven't even talked about Nerlens Noel. Nerlens Noel is a guy that almost didn't have a job in the NBA.
Yeah.
Picked up this contract with the Thunder, and I mean, he's been great.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. It's varying in coaching styles. Rick Carlisle is very. It's going to be my way or you're not going to get playing time. So a lot of players clashed with him. I don't know if you remember when Rondo got traded there from Boston. Everybody thought the Mavs were going to make this really big playoff push. Rondo's going to lead that team.
Yeah.
And then they butted heads, and a week before the playoffs, Rondo's not there. Rondo takes a leave of absence, not with the team. So I think sometimes guys just need to change a venue, just a change of scenery, and it's certainly helped Noel.
Yeah, we've talked about, maybe not us, but you hear a lot of people talk about on the radio or wherever, this idea of the Thunder culture.
Yeah.
Just kind of a family-oriented deal. You don't see a whole lot of locker room fighting going on, even though everyone wants to make Russ into a villain. He loves those guys. There's a story of him taking Ferguson out earlier this season. Terrence Ferguson, struggling to shoot the ball after one of the games. It doesn't really matter. One of the
I think it was after the Sacramento game. So after that third straight loss, and he had been horrible.
Yeah. And Russ takes him to the gym after the game, and they just shoot together.
Yeah, and just talk things through. Because when you're a young player, it's hard. I don't care if you're the number 1 pick or if you're the 60th pick in the draft. The transition is sometimes harder for some than others. So when you've got a leader like Russ on this team to help get these guys in line, he did the same thing with Sabonis his rookie year. And, Sabonis was eventually traded to the Pacers, but he was struggling in the pick and roll with Russ, and they just didn't have the right timing. So Russ grabs him, takes him to the gym, and they work on that pick and roll, and he gets better. And you know, I think he's only grown from that now with his role at Indiana. So, you know, the narrative that Russ is a bad teammate is one that's just, well, it's untrue.
Yeah, Russ is just such a polarizing figure. I feel like it's some kind of weird deal like that. People just don't like watching him play. They people that aren't Thunder fans. Let me clarify.
Yeah,
we love him, but it's like his play style. Just that people just hate it. They hate watching him play with energy and passion and get excited. He takes some crazy shots sometimes. We talked about that before. In fact, I think it was the last podcast where we were kind of with our sword and shield protecting Russ. He's going to take some stupid shots. It's kind of part of who he is.
Yeah,
and that's why we love him. He's just an individual. He's just different than everyone.
Yeah, he is. And you know, those Thunder fans who may not like watching Russ's game may end up eating their words for these next few, because in that game against New Orleans, which OKC ended up pulling out, you know, pretty easily. They're in the third quarter with about 5 minutes left. Russ comes down on Anthony Davis's foot and rolls that ankle just completely over, which
completely 90 degrees.
It hurts looking, which, you know, all things considered, there was no ligament damage. They had an MRI. They did some X-rays, and they said it's just an ankle sprain. So it just how he responds to treatment, how he responds to workouts is when he'll get back. So he's literally day to day. Now, we didn't figure he would come back tonight when we're recording this against a Cleveland Cavaliers team that's probably the worst in the NBA. There's some talk that he might come back against Houston, but being that it's a back-to-back, there's not any practice time for him to really get in the gym. So everybody thinks he's going to come back next week and kind of ease his way in one of these games, maybe against a Phoenix or a New York, kind of middle of the week next week.
Yeah, but that's pretty optimistic, especially now that what I'm saying is we can be optimistic about it. After tonight, we saw Dennis Schroeder went for 28 against the Cleveland Cavaliers on the road. Yeah. I mean, if we're getting 28 out of Schroeder or even 20, we're going to win a lot of these games. I think we even stand a really good chance against the Rockets, who are next up Thursday night. I think we have a really good chance if that unit plays the way they did. Now, they had some lulls in that game. Understandable on the road against a really, really bad team without your leader, Russ. I don't even think he was on the bench.
I'm not sure.
I didn't notice him, so he may not have traveled.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
May not travel, just trying to get treatment. So even without him on the bench or seeing him in timeouts and things, it kind of makes it hard on these young guys. But the fact that they pulled out the win the way they did, and certain guys playing well like Schroeder and that second unit, that's a really good sign going forward that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I am too. You know, the thing, if there's anything I'll critique just off of this last game, because the 5 previous to the Thunder have looked more and more like the Thunder team that we thought we would get all of last season. The one thing I would critique, I think this team as a whole, in the fourth quarter had a total of 9 assists at one point. That's something that's going to have to go up. I know there's some ball movement, and I know a lot of these guys like to play individual basketball, but there were a few times, especially when we saw that second unit in with Raymond Felton now at the helm instead of Dennis Schroeder, he would attack off the dribble, off the pick and roll, and try to shoot a really tough contested floater when the roll man, nobody hedged, nobody touched, the guy in the corner isn't sinking in, so he's got free reign to run to the rim. When he can get an easy bucket off a dunk, and you can really, really start to get moving on that offense, I'd like to see a little bit more ball movement, some higher assist numbers. Now, I know we missed some shots tonight. Role players play better at home. So some of these guys, Alex Abrines, Terrence Ferguson, Hamidou Diallo, which he ended up playing pretty well, and Patrick Patterson are just going to play better at home. And usually that's when your star player is able to stabilize that out. Yeah. And, Paul George played good in spurts, which I'm appreciative of. He just needs to get a little bit tighter with the ball and try to play make, I think, a little bit more.
Yeah, and you can see it on the screen. Look at the high assists. It's Westbrook, and then Paul George had 2. So with Westbrook coming back, I feel like those numbers will go back up.
They will. And just because it's just a comfort level. When Russell's in the game, you know exactly where you're supposed to be, where he likes to get you the ball. Everything just flows better with him in the game. I mean, you can tell just because since he's been back, this team's been, they were 5-2 in that stretch, and then obviously he was out this game. So I think they've got a good chance, even if he doesn't come back until that Knicks game. They've got a good chance up until they play Golden State on the 21st to really rattle off a lot of good wins against bad opponents.
So let's talk about the next 4 games.
Okay.
You got Houston at home, at Dallas, Phoenix at home, and then New York at home.
Yeah.
Those are some very winnable games. Minimum, I feel like they should go 3-1 in those games.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, the Rockets they've been good, but they've been very up and down.
Yeah.
But they got Chris Paul back off of his suspension from, throwing hands with Rondo.
Yeah.
And then they got James Harden back off a hamstring injury. But their defense has been abysmal. They haven't been good. They thought that they could replace Trevor Ariza and guys like that with a guy like Melo and a collection of smaller defenders. But it just hasn't worked. So, again, I said this about the Pelicans game, and I'll say it again about this Houston game. If Paul George can get going against some of these smaller wings, it really just makes everything else easier for the rest of the team.
Yep. They got to start rotating towards him. Other guys get easier shots. That's the whole idea. And, that's the last point we had for today. I think you wrote down only one of the next 7 opponents have an above 500 record. So that's exciting.
That's actually Sacramento, who by that time may not even have that.
Yeah, that's
that
a good
record.
point. It's just Sacramento, and we kind of predict that they're going to end up being a lottery team eventually. But right now playing good ball.
Yeah, right now playing really well. And so, for the next 7 games, I think 5-2 at the very worst. I know you can't win every single one of these games against bad teams. You're just going to have off nights. The Phoenix Suns may come out in one of those 2 games, and Devin Booker may get hot and drop 45.
Yep.
You may defend him well, but you just don't know. So I think 5-2 is very attainable, even if Russ is out a little bit, with the roster that they have currently against some of these teams.
Yeah, that'll be the 3rd and 4th time we play Phoenix already this season. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But any final thoughts?
No, just to keep steady and stay patient for Thunder fans out there. When Russ is out, I know this team can be frustrating. You saw it there kind of in the first quarter and a half against the Cavaliers, but they're just trying to find their footing again. It's tough when a guy that's that ball dominant and a top 5 player in the NBA
MVP
is out. Yeah, exactly. So just stay patient with this team. Don't overreact when the first quarter, when Dennis Schroeder is loose with his hand off a pick and roll and somebody pickpockets him for a layup. Don't overreact in the third quarter when Patrick Patterson misses a 3 or misses a 15-footer. Just stay the course, because this team is gritty. The past few games they've forced a lot of turnovers defensively. They're getting better on that end, and just enjoy watching this team for what it is. And that's not one of these high-powered, going to drop 130 on you shooting 50% from 3 type of teams. They're just a fun, gritty, hard-nosed, up-and-down team.
Yeah, I agree with those points. So, Thunder fans, stay locked in. We got reason for optimism. OU fans, we both are in agreement. Think OU's going to roll up this Saturday. It's going to be a good time.
Yes.
Cannot wait. We're going to have some friends over and stuff for that. I'm really
excited.
But yeah, so Bedlam, get excited. Thunder playing great. OU fans, Thunder fans, we got reason for optimism. Feels good. Yeah. We want to thank you guys again for letting us do this show. It's been a blast, kind of just something we've always wanted to do. So continue to help us share these videos. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Encourage others to subscribe. If you got a friend and you're listening to this and they're a Thunder fan, OU fan too, shoot them a text with it or whatever.
Drop a link.
Yeah, drop a link for somebody. Help us share these out. Again, subscribe to the channel. OK Sports Podcast on all the socials. Thanks for making this episode possible.
Yeah, we appreciate you again.